Today's video is brought to you by AlmostHeaven.com. Handcrafting at-home saunas since 1977. Want better sleep, less stress, and faster recovery? Now's the perfect time. Shop saunas, cold plunges, hybrids, and accessories. Use our exclusive code at checkout to save 5%. Link below.
All right, happy to be back alongside Bo Parrish. I'm Dave Erickson, and I really have been looking forward to this topic today, and it is relationships. We are on the R topic, and my first thought about relationships in life is that it's about who you know and not so much what you know, which is important, but you get ahead in life, you get ahead in business, in interpersonal relationships based on who you know and how well they know you. And Bo, there's a certain amount of accountability when you are with somebody you know and somebody knows you. Can we kind of talk about how important it is to develop and cultivate solid relationships with like-minded people?
Absolutely, Dave. And just consider what we're doing right now. I mean, you and I, what are we on here? Gosh, 3/4 of the way through our endurance alphabet. And although today we're focusing specifically on the topic of relationships, every single one of our 20-minute recordings over the last 3 months or so has been based on the relationship that you and I have built over the last 5 years. Okay, so there was an initial point of attraction being our common interest in triathlon and specifically through Timex, but we share that with 48 other athletes that we are not necessarily recording weekly conversations with. We've discovered through that common platform that we have additional interests. And over the last 3 or 4 years, we have become aware of one another's specialized abilities, talents, gifts, and we've built upon that. And now we have something that we're creating together that we are going to distribute for multimedia content at some point in the future. And it's all based on that relationship. I love what you said about in this day and age, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. It doesn't matter how much you know until I know that you care, and that you care not necessarily about me, but about building a relationship, because relationships are the gateway towards anything that you want in life. Because whatever is in your mind, that which exists between your ears, that which is called knowledge, wisdom, how do you leverage that without relationships? You have to have someone to share that knowledge with in order for you to become known as a quote unquote expert. So relationships are essentially the key to getting things done and leveraging what it is that you have learned for the benefit of others. And I can speak specifically to your multimedia production capabilities and in teaching me how to do simple things such as capturing video for my keynote speeches. We were discussing earlier, I have a book signing for the launch of my book on September the 8th. Well, you suggested that I take an iPhone, turn it to landscape view, and simply pan in and out of a few shots of me signing books. I never would have thought about that. And I never would have known that had it not been for the benefit of the R for relationship that I have with you.
What I find so incredibly valuable about relationships is that over time you understand and appreciate the other person's strengths and weaknesses, and you, based on that history of the relationship and the depth of it, you can help bring out the best in that person. And by having, let's say, a team concept, or if you have a small office of coworkers, or let's say you're on a team when you're playing a sport, or maybe even in a group fitness facility, people that you like working with and you know their strengths, you all can build your level higher together based on the mutual goals you have in mind.
Well, and essentially, if you think another benefit of a relationship is the whole accountability factor, is that when you do life with other people, when you are in community with like-minded individuals in work, in play, in social life, all of a sudden there becomes an awareness not only of your own abilities, but on the part of those that you surround yourself with, so that they too know what you're good at and what you're not necessarily good at. And in the pursuit of whatever it is you are good at, there is going to be an accountability factor, even if it's left unsaid, that there is going to be an expectation that you, being the possessor of that talent, or essentially have a responsibility to execute and to share with those that you are surrounding yourself with. That way, you're not easily let off the hook, where you are called to practice what it is that you are preaching on a consistent basis. That being whatever your talent is in the midst of the relationships that you keep.
And there's also a level of trust. I know we're not on the T letter, but trust comes to mind. This is a good example. Just yesterday, we wrapped up our local 5K series. It's a 3 Wednesday in a row series in August. And we have a small group of board members for our club. And there's a lot of tasks and responsibilities that everyone must do. And yet we have to trust that other people will see a problem and take care of it without delegating it. If I need to fill up the water jugs, make sure everyone has water, I just do it because I know it needs to be done for the greater good of the team. And that relationship concept of, even if it's a team relationship, can be carried over into the office of, we need to make sure that we are going to be successful as a team. So I am going to take the initiative and do what's necessary right now, even if I don't feel comfortable doing it. So sometimes outside of my own comfort zone.
No question. And then we're talking about efficiency with relationships, because where two or more are gathered, tasks are completed in a more timely fashion. And that's just a fancy way of saying you can get more done with two than you can with one. But I want to go back to something that you mentioned earlier on a key advantage of relationships being, it's not necessarily what we know, but who we know. And in this life, we meet people in various arenas, both in work, in play, and social. And certain people are at certain points that we too would like to be, that we would like to emulate. And just considering the general topic of success in whatever avenue it is that we're seeking to pursue, we can probably identify one, it maybe two people in certain areas that we too would like to be at their stage in life. Well, how do we get there short of studying their every move, stalking their every moment? Well, they are successful for a reason. They've pursued a path that has led them in a direction that has produced not necessarily monetary success, but let's call it relationship success. Let's just call it, right now, we just went through our mayoral elections in Nashville. Well, the office of mayor, I'm not going to say it doesn't have a tremendous amount of influence, but it's certainly not on the level of governor or state senator. It's more based on relationship equity. What this person has done over a certain period of time to invest in their community, to build credibility, to demonstrate care on behalf of those that they are leading. Well, I would apply the same principle and concept to relationships in the business place. Dave, I know there are at least one or two people in the world of multimedia who either have their own podcast, who have their own consulting companies, that you can very easily mimic their success. And I'm willing to bet that a relationship that you could possibly pursue with those people is only going to help your chances. Because when you get to the point of having a relationship that is rock solid, that person is going to be completely free and willing to share their life experience, or what I like to call their advice. This is what I would do. This is what I would avoid. And simply by asking a series of questions, you can duplicate their past success, and then you can also avoid their past mistakes. Because if you think about this world we live in, there's really nothing new under the sun. If we look all the way back in biblical times, King Solomon, who's known as the wisest man to ever live, he said in his book Ecclesiastes, he said, there's nothing new under the sun. Everything has already been done, that which we are trying to accomplish. So it's really just a matter of humbling ourselves and being willing to put our ideas, that way in which we think things should be done, on hold, if we have an opportunity to ask of someone else who is simply further down the road of life, look, how did you do it? Would you be willing to share with me how it is you created this ultra successful company, this ultra successful career, this ultra successful campaign that has gotten you to where you're going now? All of these things are built on relationships, because you can never get to the top by yourself, ever. And besides, if you do, what's the point of getting there if you have no one to share it with?
Yeah, I think about the connections that we make with other people and how valuable they are. And if you want to be like a certain person, go talk to that person. You want to follow the path that someone else did. Sometimes that's the reality, is you got to talk to the people who are doing what you want to do. And maybe you don't necessarily need to go to the classroom and read a book. Who has lived it? Who do you want to be like, or at least still have your own voice, but learn from their examples? And it's something that's cultivated, that's just how it works, isn't it? It's a process that takes months and years to get to the point where you need to be. And patience. I know we probably already covered patience already.
Well, Dave, I think we did. And you know what? I'm not necessarily patient enough to wait for someone to live an experience and to record it in a textbook, for the textbook to get published and then for it to be distributed. Because by the time that whole process occurred, something new has been discovered. A new conquest has been made, a new discovery. And where it may not be brand new original knowledge, it's a derivation of something that came before. And it's a matter of you being in the right moment at the right time, asking that question, and when that person is willing to share. Now, the flip side of this is not all successful people are always going to be willing to build new relationships. They think they get to the point where they need to be guarded, they need to be protected. They got to where they are for a reason, and the more they share, the more their success is going to be diminished. Well, I would actually say those aren't the types of people that we want to surround ourselves with, because success is not our own. Our own success is for the benefit of those that are in our immediate surroundings, those that we can serve better by the amount of success that we have achieved. Because knowledge is something that we can share openly and that we can share freely. And the more we do it, the more our own success is going to grow. We can't really keep anything without giving it away. You think about that. Everything that we've learned, we turn around and teach. Our knowledge of that particular matter only increases. And this applies, we're kind of talking more on the business side, but it also applies on the personal side. Relationships are tough. They're hard. They're not easy, because they're counterintuitive to what we prefer as human beings. We're self-centered. We like less conflict. We like to pursue our own paths. If anything goes wrong as we pursue a relationship, we simply turn around and go the other way. Well, that's not so easy when it comes to our close and personal relationships, like our wives, like our parents, like our children. Those are relationships that we are responsible for. Dave, as far as I'm concerned, I think both you and myself, as far as when we're talking about our wives, Melissa and Marietta, we're the ones that asked them, will you? They stopped what they were doing and they joined us in this thing we call life. So we have a responsibility to serve them in that relationship in order for it to grow and to flourish and be taken to that next level. Because a relationship, it's a responsibility and it requires resilience, because our first instinct is going to hole up, to focus on ourselves and what we're not getting out of the relationship. And that's simply the wrong way to look at it.
One more word comes to mind when you've added the personal part to the professional part, and I think this applies to both, is persistence in developing these relationships. And I thought about this first when we were at the tail end of the professional part. Is me in the past, when I've been into the television industry or looking to get a job with a certain news company, my persistence was my hope of keeping my name at the top of their mind. And persistence possibly in relationships is something you continue to do to get better at and ultimately become more successful based on that persistence over time. Can you kind of close this up with that type of thought process?
I would love to. And that's actually a great point that you bring up, because persistence is absolutely essential. It's a key ingredient in the relationship building recipe, but it needs to come in different forms or else it will get stale. If you are pursuing a relationship with the head of a local and all you ever do is call him on Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock, you call every single Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock. Anybody can do that. That is not creative. That's getting in a rut. That's adding zero shock value to the relationship. What can you do to change things up? What can you do to add that wow factor? You and I talked about things like sending him an ear of corn, saying with a handwritten note that's saying, could you lend me your ear? And then stopping by and doing little gag gifts. I too am doing this with a gentleman in Chicago who runs a company that could significantly help me with my public speaking. And I had a sit down with him on July 21st. It seemed to go great. I delivered my proposal with as much passion as I could possibly bring. In the center of that presentation is how I could benefit his organization. And from what I thought, it went great, and that he was very open-minded to the message. And here we are 3 weeks later, and I've yet to be able to secure another point of exchange. Now I'm getting a little frustrated, but I've learned that the more my frustration goes, the more my focus is centered on me. And I need to think outside the box on what else I can do that's going to register as valuable in his eyes. And so this past week, I sent him a Timex watch, courtesy of our sponsor, saying, and his name was Andy. I said, Andy, I know that time is of the essence, and I thank you for the time you have already given me. Regards, Bo. And he sent me a note back and he said, I really appreciate the watch. Totally unnecessary. I'm on vacation. Call me on Friday. So we'll see how that works out. But that's just a different way to think outside the box, bringing that shock value. And we're talking about pursuing new relationships, not maintaining the ones we have. When it comes to new relationships, the more you can shock, the more you can wow, the greater the chance you are going to have to advance that relationship into the future.
I love this topic, Bo. I wish we could just sit down for an hour and actually field questions. That would be probably just as exciting. Actually, getting goosebumps just thinking about how cool this is. And and the value that is coming off just this one topic, let alone the other half dozen or dozen that we've done today, this series.
Well, it was yours. And for the record, everyone, relationships was the mastermind, Dave Erickson's idea. So right back at you, brother.
Well, thank you for your time today, and thank you for sharing your wisdom on the topic of relationships, Bo.
Looking for a great at-home sauna at a great price? Get 5% off any indoor or outdoor sauna, cold plunge, or infrared sauna from Almost Heaven with my discount code DAVE, 5% off at checkout. For over 40 years, Almost Heaven saunas have been trusted as the top American home sauna manufacturer. Almost Heaven saunas deliver high-quality products and firmly stands behind the holistic benefits the sauna brings to your mind and your body. Again, get 5% off any order with my discount code DAVE, 5% off at almostheaven.com. There's also a direct link below this video.